So, reliever number 2. He will not start the year on the team. That is Matt Brash, the second guy we're going to talk about in this segment. 78 appearances the dude made last year. He served as the bridge guy for the Mariners. They leaned on him a lot. It didn't faze him. Put up an ERA just a tad over 3, over 2 wins above replacement by Fangraphs, which is one of the best numbers in baseball in terms of reliever WAR. And how much can you say about Matt Brash? Obviously, his slider is ridiculous. He has a fastball that's extremely firm. But first off, he's going to start the year on the injured list, and the team's going to have to find a way to maneuver through it without him, although he is on the right path to get back.
How do you replace that? I mean, how are you going to replace the combination of volume and stuff for the first month? Let's say month. Let's say he's out the first month safely. How do you replace that? Every time there was a fire at the end of a starter's outing last year, Brash is the first guy in. Every single time, it seemed like. And if he's not there for a month, that's a lot of appearances to replace. That's literally every other game for the most part that you have to replace an appearance for Matt Brash. Yeah. It's not something you just snap your fingers and, oh, we'll be fine.
No. When George Kirby would go 6 1/3, not giving up a run or maybe giving up 1 run, but he'd exit the game with a guy on base, you know what would happen? That door in left center would swing open. You'd hear Fireman by Lil Wayne come on. You'd see Matt Brash run out. And you'd feel good about it because nobody's scoring here. And usually nobody did because he'd shut it down. You don't replace a Matt Brash. You're going to have to get by without him, and there are going to be guys that are going to have to step up, but you don't replace a Matt Brash. That's why I was so nervous when the injury happened. And yes, like relievers can be very up and down year to year, and you don't always know what you're going to get. And is a reliever as valuable as a center fielder or a shortstop? Like, no, of course not objectively. But it wasn't just any old reliever you were potentially losing. You can't just replace a Matt Brash. And for the first month, you're not going to. You're going to just have to rely on the guys that you do have to step up in those situations and have matchups play the matchups and have different guys come in those situations to shut the door. You don't replace them.
Like a fully healthy version of this bullpen. We'll talk about Ryan Stanek in a little bit. Like Stanek seems like the guy that will take this role, I think, early on. He's going to be the first high leverage situation out of the bullpen, whether that be at the starter exits or it's from the start of an inning. And then when Matt Brash comes back, Stanek he might still come out first, or Brash might come out first, depending on the day and depending on the reliability. Does Matt Brash still pitch as much with a fully healthy bullpen? Does he still make 78 appearances in this? Knowing what we have, what the Mariners have with the rest of this bullpen.
He shouldn't have to. And the bullpen was really good last year. But especially this year, he should not have to.
No, not 78 appearances. And we're going to talk about some numbers with some of these other guys and the reason why they should probably, like, you can rely on almost any one of these 6 regulars to get the job done if you need to. There are a lot of things I really liked about Matt Brash's season last year. You're like, yeah, he's filthy, but you're going to hear some common themes, and we're talking about the relievers and why they're successful. You know what Matt Brash did last year? Didn't give up home runs. You know what else Matt Brash didn't do last year? Walk as many guys as people thought he would. For the first time in his career, he had a walk rate under 10% at any level. Under 10%. It was like 9.9, but still, that counts. Under 10. That's pretty remarkable for the kind of stuff he has when you can combine the fact that his slider moves a bajillion inches horizontally and he throws 100 miles an hour, yet he's still able to throw it in the strike zone enough to be effective. And even though he doesn't throw a sinker, he somehow does not allow home runs. Somehow he throws, as it's been described to us, it's a flat, hard fastball. And usually flat, hard fastballs get hit and hit pretty hard. But he didn't give up any home runs last year.
Well, the guy's just filthy. I will say the straight fastball could be the one thing you kind of key in on with Matt Brash and say, okay, if you were going to get even better than you already are, what could you do that much better? I would say it's that. Like when you look at his fastball results, they're not off the charts. The run value is usually slightly in the negative. Not that it's a bad pitch, but it just like, again, it doesn't garner some of the results that other fastballs in this bullpen do, or that the Matt Brash slider does. His slider, obviously, is his best pitch, and you don't need us to tell you that. But, yeah, I would say if he was going to take another jump this year, like you can look at the command and you can look at the walks. With the pure stuff that Brash has, I don't know if he's ever going to be a guy that's putting up a crazy low walk rate. That just may not be who he is. It's probably part of the reason he is no longer a starter. But I would say if there's anything he could really hone in on to get even better than he already is, and again, we're nitpicking here. This is one of the best relievers in the sport. But if he was going to get even better, I would say, like, you just can't wish upon a star and just have more life on your fastball, so to speak, but just a way to keep hitters a little more off balance with it, because it would get hit sometimes. It didn't get hit for home runs, but the fastball would get hit if you're going to look for one area of improvement for Matt Brash.
Or we could just see more of his cutter. That'd be good.
We
kept hearing about
much.
that cutter yeah, I was gonna say we kept hearing about that cutter last year, but he barely threw it.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's not like you said, you can't magically get more life on your fastball. Sometimes it just is who you are. It's your hand size. It's your release point. It's your delivery. It's your height. It's all these things. But what he can control is throwing his cutter a little bit more. Now, as long as Matt Brash keeps throwing 100 miles an hour with his four-seam fastball, I'm not totally sure the Mariners are going to be like, oh, okay, Matt, sorry, it still like sometimes gets hit hard, so we're going to have you throw your cutter more. Because the cutter is going to be a decent bit slower than that. So if he's throwing 100 miles an hour, they're going to keep having him throw his fastball, and they're going to accept the fact that hitters will be sitting on his slider so much that when the fastball does come, they'll just accidentally foul it off or something like that, and his home run rate will stay low. It's going to be really hard to replicate this home run output, like almost impossible, because it's a just exceptionally low number. But the more he throws his slider, the better. Like, just to put comparison, we talked about Munoz and how often he threw his slider in 2022. Brash threw it 14% less of the time as Munoz did in 2022 last year. They're different sliders, I will say. Munoz's slider doesn't move quite as much. It just moves enough to get a swing and a miss. Brash is a sweeper that sweeps more than any slider in baseball. A little bit harder to throw a strike, but it lost my train of thought here. But he still throws it, like, for as good of a pitch as it is, you'd think he would throw it a little bit more, and he could throw it more if he feels like he needs to this year. So there's still some room there.
Yeah, there is. But you know what? At the end of the day, obviously, like, if he repeats what he did last year, nobody's complaining about that. We're simply just like looking at areas where he could improve, because like that's what the point of this preview is. Here's what he did really well. Here's what he could still do a little bit better. At the end of the day, the most important thing with Matt Brash is he is on the field healthy and he continues to be effective, which if you've watched what he's done the last 2 years, there's no reason he shouldn't be.